An eath, on the authority of Hemachandra, Uma is applied to night. Like the blossom of Pterospermum acerifolium and Pentapetrophanacea respectively. I give these on Childers authority. Like the morning star and charcoal respectively. Like the reddish buds of the Vitex negioido and Conavera trees. Hari, omitted in the text, but given in K. And the Sai. Whereas, in the verse Haridakahamevanam kamam sumuk hapakama, Hari is spoken of as golden, by its being elsewhere taken in conjunction with coined gold, it is here meant as dark. Cf. Jot. V. Sama ti suvanasama. The color of green grass. K. And the Sai. Read Ambankoravanam. See my introduction, on long, short, as only indirectly objects of sight. The foregoing 7 visibles are set forth without reference to any base. The following according to common usage. Paraphrased as cloudy and as him, which may be frosty, snowy, or dewy, respectively. As the allusion is only to luster contrast, the sparkle of hoarfrost is probably implied. The following terms, says the Sai, illustrate varieties of luster. A little gratuitous astronomy is then thrown in. The orb of the moon, viz. the mansion of the moon god, is yojanas in extent, is made of gold and roofed with silver. That of the sun is yojanas, is made of gold and roofed with crystal. The constellations, the mansions of different gods, are, or yojanas in extent, and are made of the 7 jewels. Between the moon below and the sun above is yojana. The constellations take 2 years in their orbit. They and the sun go swiftly, the moon slowly. At times the moon leads, at times she is behind. Is of bronze. Is not a gem. Is the color of the bamboo. The master's color. Under kahapano, i.e. silver coin, masakas of copper, wood, and lac are to be included. Quoted from Venn. 3. In this and the next 2 answers, according to K. The list of typical forms given in is to be rehearsed each time in full. In the printed text, for Ruparamanam read Ruparamano, and, 2 lines later, Ruparamana. So for the other senses, etc. I follow the reading in K. Making the word adjectival to sakusamfasajo. And then to Vedana, Sana, etc. Cf. The analogous passage in, and so on. I confess I do not see what is gained by shifting kakam nisaya, so that by K.'s reading it is sandwiched between adjective and noun, beyond the symmetry in these sense-object answers, of giving precedence everywhere to the object. But this does not invalidate the reading in K. Aram manam is a term of mental procedure, not of bare sense function, such as is indicated by the relation of rupam. Kaku. I.e. the sound of lutes and other stringed instruments. E.g. of gongs and castanets. I.e. of hand clapping. I.e. of a crowd when words and syllables have become indistinguishable. I.e. of trees rubbing against each other, or of the knocking of blocks. Venn. Texts, 3. N. I.e. of wind as wind. I.e. either of beaten or flowing water. I.e. of splitting reeds, tearing cloth, and the like. Continue as for visible forms in Shugandho, Dugandho, these, says Buddhaghosa, namely, desired odour and undesired odour, exhaust all odour. He predicates the same of good and bad tastes. In we find, classed among the tangibles, pleasant contact and painful contact. But we do not find the commentator making the same comprehensive claim for hedonistic values in touches as in odours and tastes. Nor, as we have seen, does the text predicate anything hedonistically of sight or touch. This is interesting as bringing the psychology of Buddhism, with its acute if incipient intuition, in touch with our modern psychology. For we say that the more our knowledge of the external world is built up by a given sense, the more is that sense connected with neutral feeling. And it is precisely sight, touch, and hearing that give us most of that knowledge. Aristotle remarks, with reference to the sense of smell only, that are never discriminating in odour without associating therewith an impression of something painful or pleasant, seems to reveal the imperfection of this sense in humans. Imperfect, i.e. in delicacy of discrimination, touch being herein the most perfect sense. See note. Buttermilk is given as a typical sour sapid, ghee from cow's milk as the type of a sweet sapid. But, adds the Psi, sweet added to astringent and kept standing will lose all its sweetness, and so with raw sugar and alkaline substance. Ghee, however, kept standing, while it loses color and smell, does not lose its taste. It therefore is the absolute sweet. E.g. as Nimtree fruit. E.g. as ginger and pepper. E.g. as sea salt. E.g. as the eggplant, or as green palm sprouts. E.g. as the jujube, or the Feronia elephantum, etc. E.g. as the yellow myrobalan. I am, as before, indebted to Childers' Dictionary for all this botanical knowledge. Sadhu Sadhu. C.N. C.N. For the sphere of the tangible, see below. Literally the indriyam, the faculty, potentiality of the female. Under appearance, which the Psi rules to be here the import of lingam. He indicates the physical proportions in which the woman, generally speaking, differs from the man: smaller hands, feet and face, upper trunk less broad, lower trunk broader. Characteristics are that by which she is recognizable, both external bodily marks and modes of dressing. Under occupation there is an allusion to girls' distinctive amusements, playing with baskets, pestles and mortars, and dolls, and spinning thread with a madakavakam, whatever that may be. Under deportment, the absence of breadth in women's walking, standing, sitting, lying, and eating is specified, all these being done more mincingly, less assertively by women. If a man so deport himself, it is said of him, he goes like a woman. The condition and being of the female, constituting her essential nature, are born of karma, and take their source at conception. The other female characteristics are evolved by her potentiality in the course of existence, just as the tree with all its appurtenances is evolved in time from the seed. This indriyam is discernible, not by the eye, but by the mind. And it is not to the one sex just what the faculties of sight and so forth are to the other. The priority of place given to the female is a form of statement as characteristically Buddhist as that of saying moon and sun. Both no doubt have their source very deep in the history, or prehistory, of humanity. The commentator gives the correlative opposites in describing male characteristics, down to the swashbuckling and martial air, which if a woman affect she is said to go like a man. Boys are said to occupy themselves with their characteristic games of playing at carriages and ploughs, and at making sandbanks round puddles and calling them reservoirs. He then remarks that these sexual distinctions have been evolved during the course of life in primeval ages. Since when, originating by way of conception and, some of them, in the individual life, it happens that they get interchanged. He then quotes cases of hermaphroditism, said to have occurred in the members of the order. He is mindful also, as we might expect, to appreciate the sex to which he belongs, and makes a curious application to it of the doctrine of karma. Of the two, the male sex marks are superior, those of the female inferior. Therefore the former disappear by means of a very bad karma, while the latter are established by a karma indifferently good. The latter, on the other hand, disappear by means of a karma indifferently bad, while the former are established by means of a very good karma. Thus, both disappear by badness and are acquired by goodness. Thus, our commentator approximates more to Plato's position than to that of the typical religious celibate, finding woman not stronger to do evil, but rather the weaker in heaping up either good or evil. What there is to say, has been said already in connection with the faculty of vitality as related to incorporeal states. Ko is said to equal sariram. Possibly to distinguish it from ko as used for body sensibility, or the tactile sense, or again from sense experience generally. Kaya Vinfiati is analyzed in a somewhat rambling style by the commentator. The gist of his remarks amounts, I gather, to the following. In any communication effected by bodily action, that which is made known is one's condition at the time, one's self, and one's intention. In other words, the how, the who or what, and the what for. And this is wrought by a bodily suffusion. He then classifies the kinds of thoughts which tend to produce an intimation, no others having this tendency. They are the 8 good thoughts relating to the sensuous universe, and the thought concerning intuition. The 12 bad thoughts. The 8 great Kiriya thoughts, the 2 limited Kiriya thoughts, the 1 Kiriya thought relating to the universe of form which has attained to intuition, making 11 indeterminate thoughts. Finally he refers us to his theory of doors. See my introduction. Vasuvinati is dealt with verbatim as bodily intimation was, vocal noise being substituted for bodily suffusion. Making noises is to be understood as making a noise in a variety of ways. Articulate speech lit. Broken up speech is no mere jangle, but is vocal utterance so divided as to serve for communication. It is interesting to note in connection with the problem as to whether communication or registration of thought is the historically prior function of language. That Buddhaghosa, for all his aptness to draw distinctions, does not make any allusion here to intimation by language forming only one of the functions of speech. Still more curious, as being more germane to this specific aspect of language, is it that he does not take into account the oral communication of the registered ideas of the race. Buddhaghosa's etymology derives akaso from unpluffed. What may not be ploughed, cut, or broken, which recalls Homer's alpha tau rho nu gamma epsilon tau omicron alpha iota theta eta rho alpha tau rho nu gamma epsilon tau eta theta alpha lambda alpha sigma alpha, as well as the alpha kappa alpha rho pi iota sigma tau alpha pi epsilon delta iota alpha of Euripides. Sky he connects with striking, agam, agodni yam, what is not strikable. Akaso, he continues, is that which delimitates, or sets bounds to forms, environing them and making them manifest. Through it, in forms thus bounded, we get the notions, hence above, hence below, hence across. Asamputham katu I mahabhudahi. Although space is in this work treated of apart from the 4 elements, and does not, as a rule, count as a 5th element in the Pitakas. Yet, in the Maha Ilhulaveda Sutta, when Gautama is discoursing to his son of the distribution of the elements in the composition of the human body, he coordinates Akazadata with the 4 other datas, to all appearance as though it should rank as a 5th element. In the older Upanishads it is usually coordinated with the 4 elements, though not, as such, in a closed list. In the Taittiriya Up, however, it appears as the one immediate derivative from the Atman. Wind, fire, water, earth, plants, etc. Proceeding, the first from Akaka, the rest, taken in order, from each other. The word asamputham is paraphrased by Nijatakam, and may mean that space does not commingle with the 4 elements as they with each other. Belongs to is, in the Pali, Gatam. Cf. above, with this and the 2 following answers. Supremely well-dressed hide is given as an illustration of the plasticity of matter. Gold, which is Sudhanta, is given as typically wieldy material. Buddhaghosa evidently reads so Rupasa Upakya here, and in the next section Sa Rupasa. This is only adopted by the text in K. Reads so in Sa. This and the following section formularize the coming into being of things. Integration is paraphrased as the cumulative effect of the spheres as they are reproduced over and over again. The import of the term is v-ad-hi, fullness of growth. Akya, or nibbati, is to upakya or vadhi as the welling up of water in a reservoir by a river's bank is to the brimming over of the water, while santati or pavati is as the overflow and running of the water. All are expressions for the phenomenon of birth and growth. This is a stock formula, and occurs at m. I. S. 2. End. The Psi points out that the three terms, decrepitude, etc., show the phenomena that must take place in the lapse of time. The last two show the inference that is to be drawn from them. For just as a flood or a forest fire can be traced by the appearance of the grass and trees in its track, so can we infer respecting our life and faculties by the appearance of teeth, hair, and skin. This and the preceding section formularize the waning and passing away of things. Birth and growth. Decay and death are by the commentator likened to three enemies of mankind, the first of whom leads him astray into a pit, the second of whom throws him down, the third of whom cuts off his head. Literally, morsel made food. Bodily suffices to distinguish it from the three immaterial nutriments. Cp. Under these come roots and fruits. ASL. On this section, where form is considered under the aspect of sustaining growth, etc., the commentator gives a brief dissertation where an adumbration of physiological truth is humorously illustrated. Whereas, he says, food is here first set out in terms of its embodiment, in aja we have the evolved essence of it. Now whereas the former removes risk, the latter is a preservative. And the risk is this, that when no food is taken, the karma-born heat within feeds on the walls of the belly, making the owner cry out, I am hungry. Give me something to eat. And only setting his intestines free when it can get external food. The internal heat is likened to a shadow demon who, having got the entry into a man's shadow, bites his head when hungry so that he cries out. When other men come to help, the demon, quitting his hold, preys on them. In the case of coarse food, e.g. kudrusa grain, aja is said to be weak and sustains but a short time, while if a man drink ghee and the like he wants no other meal the whole day. Living beings are then classified in an order of increasing fineness in the food they live on. Beginning with crocodiles, who, they say, swallow pebbles. Continuing with peacocks, hyenas, and elephants, later with other birds, then with borderers, town dwellers, kings, and ending with the Yama and Paranimatavasavati gods, who enjoy food of supreme delicacy. Just as derived form is derived in such and such a way and in no other, so, to say it is not derived, is equivalent to saying it is not derivable. ASL. Possibly the form of negative here employed is a technical mark of the relatively unethical nature of this aspect of r up m. Anupada, on the other hand, is used with a philosophical import. Cf. D. I. With m. I. Anupada vimato and Anupada paranabanatham. See also below, and. In keeping with the general psychological standpoint of the present work, the things which are not derived jram other things are considered under the aspect of sense percepts. They are tangibles or intangibles. Element is now substituted for the collective term used above, namely, great phenomena or beings. Mahabhutani, et sec. Both terms occur together in a. I. The latter term may be used to denote great or wondrous derivatives of the four elements. Great either physically or ethically. As when the ocean and its great creatures serve to illustrate the Dhamma and those wondrous phenomena, the human beings who by way of it are seeking or have attained nirvana. Tatu, on.